Hi, thank you for joining me, Jedi Master Josh. Today, I want to talk about the explosive IG report that came out on Friday. The IG is the Inspector General. His name is Michael Horowitz, and since January 12th, 2017, he and his team have been looking into the FBI's handling and the DOJ's handling of the Clinton email investigation, as well as certain aspects of the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, and the impact that those investigations had prior to the 2016 election, in terms of how those two agencies handled those particular elections. Now, it's worth noting that the IG, the Inspector General, is not a federal prosecutor. He cannot actually charge people with a crime. That's not his job. Now, this report is over 500 pages. The IG report. It was a vast amount of documents that they had to go through. Over 1 million documents altogether that they had to go through in order to create this report. But of course, almost immediately, probably without really even reading any of it, the mainstream media, in lockstep, came out and they said that it's really a nothing burger. That, well, it may show that there are some problems within the FBI. There maybe are some ethical issues. That it shows that there was a clear animus, a clear bias against President Trump, but it doesn't actually show that the political bias actually manifests itself in any way to affect the investigations. So that's what the mainstream media are locking onto. They're also locking onto the aspect of Comey basically reopening the Hillary Clinton campaign. They said that the timing of that, which was just before the election, really damaged Hillary Clinton. And so the mainstream media is saying, look, it shows there's no political bias, and the reopening of the investigation damaged Hillary Clinton. So if anything, the FBI helped Donald Trump. So amazingly, that is the conclusion that the mainstream media has come to. They are treating the Inspector General report as if it really isn't that big of a deal. Or if it is a big deal, that it's a big deal in the sense that it shows that the FBI helped out Hillary Clinton. That's not the case, and I'm going to go through some key takeaways of the IG report. Again, it's a 500-page report. I haven't read the whole thing. I'm not going to pretend like I have, but I've read key sections, and I want to go through some of those key sections with you. So first off, one of the main findings from the IG report, one of the bombshell findings from the IG report, is that the FBI accepted gifts from reporters. Now remember, the FBI was leaking like a sieve during this whole period. And this is now evidence that perhaps they weren't just leaking simply because they thought they were doing the right thing. Perhaps they were conducting these leaks because they were receiving these sort of benefits from reporters. This is actually pretty insane. So this is directly from the IG report. We identified instances where FBI employees improperly received benefits from reporters, including tickets to sporting events, golfing outings, drinks and meals, and admittance to non-public social events. We will separately report on those investigations as they are concluded, consistent with the Inspector General Act, other applicable federal statutes, and the OIG policy. The harm caused by leaks, fear of potential leaks, and a culture of unauthorized media contacts is illustrated in chapters 10 and 11 of our report, where we detail the fact that these issues influenced FBI officials who were advising Comey on consequential investigative decisions in October 2016. So, you've got a pretty serious issue there when you have the FBI, individuals within the FBI, actually accepting gifts from reporters, apparently in exchange for leaks. So that's something that the inspector general said they will basically continue to investigate, and it's something that is truly troubling, for sure, and does not help the credibility of the FBI at this critical time. So the IG rather, recommended in this report 5 additional FBI employees for investigation, 2 of which being Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, the 2 love-struck FBI officials who were texting each other using their work phones because they were both married and they were having an affair, and they were using their work phones to hide the fact that they were having an affair. These 2 individuals texted each other prolifically. I mean, thousands of texts were sent between the 2 of them, a ridiculous number of texts. Many of them were personal, but many of them were in fact work-related. Many of them showed a deep animus towards President Trump. They showed that these individuals absolutely despised President Trump. They despised people that supported President Trump, in fact. And indeed, they showed a inclination towards Hillary Clinton. They preferred her by far, I mean, obviously. So it's not just a bias against Trump, it's a clear bias for Hillary Clinton, and this is demonstrated in the text as well as the actions that were taken throughout the investigations. So the IG report goes on to elaborate on Strzok and Page, as well as giving an overview of the 5 employees altogether that were recommended for investigation. So it says here, we are deeply troubled by the text messages sent by Strzok and Page that potentially indicated or created the appearance that the investigative decisions were impacted by bias or improper considerations. Most of the text messages raising such questions pertain to the Russia investigation, which was not a part of this review. Nonetheless, when one senior FBI official, Strzok, who was helping to lead the Russia investigation at the time, conveys in a text message to another senior Trump official, Page, that, quote, will stop candidate Trump from being elected, after other extensive text messages between the 2 disparaging candidate Trump, it is not only indicative of a biased state of mind, but even more seriously implies a willingness to take official action to impact the presidential candidate's electoral prospects. So very powerful language there, and it's just crucial to remember that Peter Strzok, this person that they're referring to, this FBI agent, was the lead agent on both the Hillary Clinton email probe and the investigation into Donald Trump. This guy who absolutely hates Donald Trump, hates Trump supporters, and even went so far as to say to his lover, Lisa Page, in a text that we will stop Trump. Lisa Page texted him saying, basically something to the effect of, no, there's no way Trump will be president. This can't be happening. Basically having a typical, Trump derangement syndrome type meltdown. To which Peter Strzok, incredibly, texts back, no, he won't. We'll stop him. He said, we'll stop him. It's only common sense to assume that when he says we'll stop him, he's meaning him in his capacity as an FBI agent, and the FBI as a whole will stop Trump. And amazingly, that text was actually withheld from Congress. That incredibly bombshell text was withheld from Congress, who has requested that they receive all text messages pertaining to the Trump-Russia collusion and Hillary Clinton probe, all the text messages between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. And out of all the text messages, the thousands that they received, that one magically was erased, and the congressional, the congressional oversight committees found out about that text the same time that everybody else did when this IG report came out. So truly amazing that would happen. It goes on to say, this is antithetical to the core values of the FBI and the Department of Justice. Moreover, as we describe in Chapter 9, in assessing Strzok's decision to prioritize the Russia investigation over following up on the mid-year related investigative lead discovered on the Wiener laptop in October 2016, These text messages led us to conclude that we did not have confidence that Stroke's decision was free from bias. And you're not going to see the mainstream media reporting on this particular section unless perhaps they absolutely have to, because all they want to look at is the executive summary portion where it says that there was no evidence that political bias affected any decisions within the investigations themselves. But that doesn't mean, and it makes clear right here, that there wasn't bias that was involved. And it says clearly that they did not have confidence that Stroke's decision was free from bias. And the fact that they weren't able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt is not the same thing as saying that it wasn't there at all. Not by a long shot. It goes on to say, at a minimum, we found that employees' use of FBI systems and devices to send the identified messages demonstrated extremely poor judgment and gross lack of professionalism. We therefore refer this information to the FBI for its handling and consideration of whether the messages sent by the 5 employees listed above violates the FBI's offense code of conduct. Additionally, we recommend that the FBI assess whether it has provided adequate training to employees about the proper use of text messages and instant messages, including any related discovery obligations, and 2, to consider whether to provide additional guidance about the allowable uses of FBI devices for any non-governmental purposes, including guidance about the use of FBI devices for political conversations. So there were 5 individuals that were recommended for investigation regarding their use of devices, of FBI devices, to talk about these sorts of political issues and showing this sort of clear political bias. Now, another example of one of these, several individuals within the FBI that were using this kind of language are 2 individuals known as Person 1 and Person 2. For some reason, we're not allowed to know who these people are. And it says here, this is a communication between from Person 1 to Person 2. These are both people within the FBI. Is it making you rethink your commitment to the Trump administration? One FBI lawyer wrote on November 22nd, 2016. And number 2 writes back, amazingly, hell no, viva la resistance. Viva la resistance. So he is officially part of the resistance. And even more incredibly, this individual, we know, at least we don't know his name, but we know that he was part of the Mueller probe. He was not only part of the FBI during the Russia collusion probe, but he then moved on to become a part of the special counsel with Robert Mueller. And he was kicked off the special counsel with Robert Mueller, similarly to Peter Strzok, after text messages, I'm assuming text messages like the one I just read, or perhaps the one I just read, may have been the catalyst for this. He was fired because of these text messages that the IG found. So it goes to show how these people who were to the core anti-Trump were at the very spearhead of the investigations against him. Certainly does not look good at the very least. And there's just so many bombshells within this report. It's just incredible. But one that is just truly insane and that really needs to be investigated further is the relationship between Peter Strzok, again, this head FBI agent leading both the Clinton probe and the Russia probe, the Trump-Russia probe, has a relationship with a certain somebody. Now, this person is a judge on the FISA court, the the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court, which is a secret, sort of secret court that grants search warrants for counterintelligence operations to be able to spy on individuals and to access their communications and to do things of that sort. Peter Strzok actually knows this judge. This judge is named Rudolf Contreras. And this judge is very important because not only is he a FISA judge, but he is the judge who accepted Michael Flynn's guilty plea. Now, if you don't remember, Michael Flynn was the former national security advisor. He was charged with lying to the FBI for conversations that he had with the Russian ambassador during the transition period before Donald Trump became president. Now, the FBI agents who interviewed him did not think that he was lying when he had the interview with them. The conversation that he had between the Russian ambassador and himself was a completely normal conversation that was totally in the purview of somebody who was going to be the national security advisor. So, case in point, the guy did nothing wrong. He probably didn't even lie about not doing anything wrong in the first place. And he then basically says that he's guilty of lying. Now, the reason he did is because his life got ruined. Paying for the legal fees were so immense that he had to actually sell his house to actually pay for these legal fees. And eventually it got to the point where he's like, fine, yeah, sure, I lied. But he didn't. And this judge that accepted his guilty plea was actually acquaintances with Peter Strzok. Shortly after, days after Rudolf Contreras, this judge, accepted the guilty plea, he had to recuse himself, which is something that is very rare. For a judge to recuse themselves in a case is rare alone, but for them to recuse themselves after accepting a guilty plea is even more rare. And we now know that there were conversations between the two of them, or potential conversations between Peter Strzok and Rudolf Contreras. But at the bare minimum, Peter Strzok was texting to Lisa Page, his lover, about Rudolf Contreras. And that's what I want to get into right now. Peter Strzok said, quote, "I can't imagine either one of you could talk about anything in detail." I'm sorry, this is Lisa Page. "I can't imagine either one of you could talk about anything in detail meaningful enough to warrant recusal," Page said to Strzok in one text, making an apparent reference to Contreras. "Really," Strzok replied. "Rudy, I'm in charge of espionage for the FBI. Any espionage warrant request that comes before him, what should he do, given that his friend oversees them?" So, Peter Strzok is talking about meeting with his friend Rudolf Contreras, who apparently he's known for some time, and they're discussing the fact that he may have to recuse himself because of the fact that they may potentially meet together. Then in another exchange, he goes on to say that. Quote, "A social setting with others would probably be better than a one-on-one meeting." The message's context suggests he was referring to Contreras, but it's unclear how seriously he was contemplating the idea. A person familiar with the matter said such a meeting between Contreras and Strzok never happened. So Peter Strzok was essentially talking about setting up some sort of cocktail party and inviting this judge, Rudolf Contreras, to this cocktail party. He was also talking about how he may have to recuse himself if they meet together, and talking about espionage warrants that might come before him, and how that may pertain to him having to recuse himself, because Peter Strzok is, again, one of the lead agents in the counter-espionage division of the FBI. So on December 1st of 2016, Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to the FBI. On December 7th, the judge actually wound up recusing himself from the case. So it was days after he decided to accept. He actually accepted the guilty plea that he recused himself. Now the timeline's pretty interesting here because on December 2nd is when media reports started coming out that Peter Strzok had actually been let go from the Mueller probe because of his anti-Trump texts that were found by the IG. And so it really begs the question, why did he recuse himself right after that? He accepted the guilty plea and then recused himself. Was the judge notified that Peter Strzok was discussing his recusal, was discussing meeting with him in private? Is that why he recused himself? It remains to be seen, but at least one individual, former prosecutor, I believe former prosecutor, Joe DeGeneva, says that he believes that the judge was actually forced to recuse himself and did not choose to do so. So there is still, obviously, plenty of investigating that needs to go on when it pertains to that, but it is certainly beyond shady that Peter Strzok knows this judge, and is talking about meeting with him in private, talking about him having to recuse himself, and then shortly after, presumably these texts even were found by the IG, the judge decides to recuse himself. So very strange, very, very shady, very suspicious, and again needs to be investigated more. And a key question is, he may have recused himself because he found out that there was this now potential conflict of interest. But what would be way more explosive and is possible, as far as I understand, although it would obviously be a humongous scandal, is, again, this judge was on the FISA court. The whole the one thing that really allowed the FBI to spy on the Trump campaign was the FISA warrant that was put on Trump campaign member Carter Page at the time. Now, because of this FISA warrant that was put on Carter Page, they were able to monitor him and potentially monitor other individuals within the Trump campaign that may have gone all the way up to Trump himself. So it was their tool to be able to spy on the Trump campaign, and this FISA application may have been signed. The original FISA application or one of the renewals may have been signed by this FISA judge, by Judge Rudolph Contreras. Now, if that is the case, that would obviously be a humongous bombshell, because you would have, if that's the reason for his recusal, that would be bombshell, because you'd have the same judge who ordered the illegitimate FISA warrant that was based on the dossier that was salacious and unverified. This fake information, that was gathered by the DNC and Hillary Clinton's campaign, paid for and funded by those entities. This false, salacious, unverified information was used to get a phony FISA warrant. And it may have been, if it was the judge who then accepted the guilty plea for somebody that was gained by illegitimately spying on them in the first place, it would just obviously be a humongous bombshell and would just make this tangled web of conspiracy even worse. So, that all remains to be seen, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of all of this. Now, moving on, we know that Hillary contacted 13 individuals using her private email server. One of those individuals was Barack Obama, who was using a pseudonym at the time. Now, Barack Obama apparently lied about the knowledge of this server, because he said in an interview in 2015 that he found out about the email server the same way that the rest of us did, through the news reports. Well, that is probably probably impossible, because the only way that that could be true is if, because he was receiving emails from Hillary Clinton on her private server. So the only way that that would be possible is if he didn't know that those emails weren't from her state.gov account, which they should have been, which means he would have had to have not noticed the fact that it wasn't from a .gov account, which is just beyond belief, truly. I mean, the excuse that the Obama staffers came up with at the time was that he just didn't know that it was that she was using it for official business. But again, regardless, he would have to not have noticed that she wasn't using a .gov account. There's really just no way that that's true. So President Obama himself was in fact a witness in the Hillary Clinton email case, and he himself was using a pseudonym and communicating with Hillary Clinton on her private server. Just a little bit shady. Now, apparently, at least to the extent that we know, there were no classified emails that were exchanged between the two of them. Now, the IG report also verifies that hostile actors did in fact access Hillary's emails, but they may not have accessed these emails from the server itself. They may have got them, collected the emails as they were in communication. We also find out that Director Comey himself, had a private email server where he did conduct official but not classified FBI business. So you have the guy who is investigating somebody, Hillary Clinton, for using a private email to conduct official business, while he's using a private email to conduct official business. You know, no conflict there, no conflict of interest, no sense of irony or hypocrisy there. You know, nothing to see here. No big deal whatsoever. And again, he wasn't sending classified information from what we know or receiving it on this private email. But that is beside the point, because all official business should be done on a classified server, on a government server rather, and it's simply because it should all be part of the public record. So, you know, it's pretty astonishing that Comey himself actually had a private server that he was using for official business. But even more incredible is the fact that James Comey has now admitted that he apparently did not know that Huma Abedin was married to Anthony Weiner, which would make him the one person in the world of politics that did not know that. Truly astonishing if that's true. Really, he's almost certainly would be lying, because it's almost impossible that he didn't know that. But it's truly, it's just astonishing that he would say that. I mean, because if he is lying about that, which he almost certainly is, it's not helping his case whatsoever. The reason that he is saying he didn't know Huma Abedin was married to Anthony Weiner is because he's trying to distance himself from the fact that when the FBI found out that Hillary Clinton's emails were in fact on Anthony Weiner's laptop, that they did nothing with that information for almost a month. Now, he's trying to say that because he didn't know Anthony Weiner was married to Huma Abedin, who was the top, Hillary Clinton aide at the time, that somehow that excuses the fact that he didn't move on those emails, those classified emails that were on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Really, unless I'm missing something here, to me that makes it worse, because you're saying, at least if it was, if he knew that he was married to Huma Abedin, the whole thing was that Huma was sharing Anthony Weiner's laptop, and that's why those emails were on there. Why? And at least that obviously doesn't excuse it, but it makes sense to a degree. The fact that Hillary Clinton's emails would be on Anthony Weiner's laptop just randomly if he had no real connection, at least in that way, to Hillary Clinton, to me that makes it worse. So I don't understand why he would make that up, why he would lie about that. It seems like a really bad excuse, and again, I think it makes it worse, honestly. So truly, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time Comey screwed everything up. So maybe that's just Comey just being Comey. So just amazing that he would say he didn't know Huma Abedin was married to Anthony Weiner. Just an incredible revelation of total, utter ineptitude. I mean, truly astonishing. So we know that Comey, Strzok, and McCabe all knew about the Clinton emails that were on Weiner's laptop in late September. Now remember, in July, Comey came out with his infamous press conference and exonerated Hillary Clinton, said that, she violated the Espionage Act and she concealed evidence and, she destroyed evidence and she lied about, the different devices that she was using. She had her, aides come out and smash devices with hammers and do, all this stuff after she had gotten subpoenas for documents and then decides to acid wash them all using BleachBit to cover all of her tracks and make sure that they were impossible to recover in any way, shape, or form. But no big deal. We're going to go and give her a pass because no reasonable prosecutor would actually say that Hillary Clinton violated the law, even though when somebody takes a picture inside a submarine and it's at the lowest level of classification, we consider that mishandling of classified information, and we're going to throw that person in jail for years. So, I mean, really, there's a two-tiered justice system. And it was completely clear when Comey came out with that press conference. But we know now that there was another botch up of the handling after they found out there was additional emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. So again, Comey, Strzok, and McCabe all knew about this, and in September, late September, and they only moved on it after they were forced to because the New York field office, the actual rank and file in the FBI, were going to basically leak that information. So I want to now go to a thread from Undercover Huber, who highlighted some key parts of the OIG report. First, FBI director, assistant director in charge of the ADIC of New York office, William Sweeney, is told about the discovery of huge numbers of Clinton emails on Weiner's laptop on September 28, 2016. He immediately tells FBI Deputy Director McCabe, in charge of the mid-year exam Clinton case, which Strzok is heading up. And McCabe is on top above him, the Deputy Director. Sweeney, this is the guy at the head of the New York field office. Sweeney also tells other senior FBI leadership, 2 EADs, one of whom tells the OIG under oath that they also informed McCabe about the Clinton-Weiner emails. In his mind, there was no doubt, quote-unquote, McCabe immediately understood the gravity of what the find was. So, late September, New York field office contacts Andy McCabe, Deputy Director. Look, dude, we found a treasure trove of emails in this dude's laptop. We're looking, we're investigating Anthony Weiner because of the sex stuff, and they find these Clinton emails. They try to tell Andy McCabe about it, and Andy McCabe, according to this testimony, had no doubt that he understood the gravity of what the find was. Well, what does McCabe do? He goes and he tells James Comey in passing about it, and they do nothing for basically almost a month. additional discussions took place on October 3rd and 4th, 2016. However, after October 4th, we found, and this is the OIG investigation, the report, we found no evidence that anyone associated with the mid-year investigation, including the entire leadership team at the FBI headquarters, took any action on the Wiener laptop issue until the week of October 24th. So from late September, September 28th to October 24th, they did nothing on these emails, even though they knew full well the importance of this of the situation. And it goes on to say, and they did so only after the Wiener case agent expressed concerns to the Southern District of New York, prompting SDNY to contact the Office of the Deputy Attorney General on October 21st to raise concerns about the lack of action. And they were, in fact, willing to leak that information if Comey didn't come out. Comey then only after realizing that there was about to be leaks from the field office does he come out and say that they tell Congress that they are going to reopen the Hillary Clinton investigation. Only after sitting on these emails for a month, basically, does he actually move on them, only because he's forced to. So basically, what Comey was doing is he knew that the reopening of this case would be less damaging to Hillary Clinton than allowing a leak to take place, which he knew was going to happen. He was basically playing damage control for Hillary Clinton. Now, the thing is, this happened like a month before the election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Even though it was less damaging than a leak would have been, it was still damaging to Hillary Clinton. And some people think it may have even swung the election for Hillary Clinton. And this is one of the only takeaways that the mainstream media has really taken from this. They say, oh, look, it shows that the FBI helped Hillary Clinton. Not at all. How do you get that from that? The FBI, they sat on this information that they knew was important. Why did they sit on it? Because they were focused on the Russia probe. They were focused on trying to take out President Trump, basically. And because they were so focused on the Russia probe, they didn't focus whatsoever on the Wiener laptop and the Hillary Clinton emails that were found on them, some of which, by the way, were classified. So the ironic thing is, the hilarious thing is that if they would have came out right away, right when they found out about these emails and announced that they were going to reopen the investigation, or actually properly investigated them at all, then there would have been really no damage, or far less damage, to Hillary Clinton. So it was their own laser focus on trying to get Trump, basically, that made them completely just take a blind eye to the Hillary Clinton Wiener laptop emails, and again, only moved on them because they were forced to. Yet, of course, the mainstream media says, "Look, the FBI helped Hillary Clinton." Yeah, right. That was totally what James Comey was trying to do on that one. And really, there was no proper investigation of Hillary Clinton in the first place, because we know that the draft that was going to make the decision to not indict Hillary Clinton was made by James Comey and others at the FBI before they had even interviewed Hillary Clinton. Key witnesses, people like Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson, key Hillary Clinton aides, were given immunity without having to give up anything, nothing that would have required immunity. Then these individuals are actually able to sit in on the FBI interview with Hillary Clinton, completely against FBI protocol, completely 100% against FBI protocol. And we know that the original letter, the original draft that Comey was drafting up, and his team actually had tougher language. It had, instead of extreme carelessness, gross negligence, that term put in there to describe Hillary Clinton's violation of protocol when it came to her using a private server and conducting official business on it. You're talking about classified, top secret, above top secret in some cases, information that was put on this server of hers. Information that hostile actors were shown to have obtained some of her emails. So, clearly this is you have a violation of the Espionage Act here. You've got total gross negligence, and that wording was changed to extreme carelessness. Also, you had, for example, the fact that Barack Obama was communicating with Hillary Clinton on her private email server. They took his name out and they added unnamed government official or something to that effect. So they toned down the letter to the point that it exonerated Hillary Clinton, and they basically had decided that they were not going to charge Hillary Clinton with anything before even interviewing her. And again, allowing key aides, witnesses in this investigation to sit in on another witness interview. It just defies common sense, but it clearly defies FBI protocol. Now, the Department of Justice has been stonewalling for months now when it comes to congressional oversight, looking to get information about everything that took place around the Trump-Russia probe. And a key example of that is the text between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, where Peter Strzok said that we'll stop him, referring to President Trump. Just amazing. Now, Congress congressional oversight was asking for all the texts, all the information that pertained to the Trump-Russia probe, and the Department of Justice swears up and down that they've given them all that information, and as just an example of how time and time again they say they've given up all the pertinent information, and some bombshell that they were hiding, just happens to slip out. This is a perfect example of that. They someone in the DOJ hid that text message, that very text message. Out of the thousands that they received, that specific one was hidden from Congress. So this is the level of stonewalling that's going on with the DOJ, and it's gotten to the point now where Congress has gotten to the point where they finally have to act. They've subpoenaed these documents. They're not getting all the documents they want. They may now have to move to the point where they actually, potentially impeach Rod Rosenstein. Now, amazingly, Rod Rosenstein has been, again, he's the, at least for all intents and really he's the head of the Department of Justice right now when it comes to anything involving Russia, because Jeff Sessions recused himself horrifyingly in one of the worst decisions ever made. And Rod Rosenstein has been abusing his power as the head of the DOJ in such insane ways that apparently he even threatened staff members of congressional oversight to subpoena their phone calls, texts, and emails in an apparent, show of force to, I guess, blackmail them or something. I don't know. But basically, he's just abusing his power in unprecedented ways in an attempt to stonewall. And people in congressional oversight are really, it seems, finally getting fed up with it, to the point where even swamp creatures like the head of the House, the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, to the point where even people like Paul Ryan, swamp creatures like Paul Ryan, have had to come out and say, look, we're going to do whatever we have to get this information. And I applaud him for finally taking that step. So here's a video of Trey Gowdy talking about the Rod Rosenstein threat and and the documents that they've requested, and how all that may wind up going down in the near future.
Finally, where are House Republicans in your demand, your call for the Department of Justice to share more documents, especially on this question of the use by the FBI of a confidential informant to penetrate the Trump campaign? And also, do you believe, as some of your colleagues have suggested, that Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein threatened the House and threatened staffers for demanding those documents?
Well, I wasn't in the room for that January meeting. I've been in the room with some other meetings where tensions ran really high. We had a meeting Friday night under the heading of Minor Miracles. You had members of the House working on a Friday night. Paul Ryan led this meeting. You had Devin Nunes, Bob Goodlatte, myself, and everyone you can think of from the FBI and the DOJ. And we went item by item on both of those outstanding subpoenas. We either have compliance, we have partial compliance, or we have non-compliance. And Paul made it very clear there's going to be action on the floor of the House this week if the FBI and DOJ do not comply with our subpoena request. So Rod Rosenstein, Chris Wray, you were in the meeting. You understood him just as clearly as I did. We're going to get compliance, or the House of Representatives is going to use its full arsenal of constitutional weapons to gain compliance. This is too important. It was too important before the IG report. The IG report has even heightened the need for us to understand what happened in 2016. So the new guys can either be part of the cleanup crew or they can be part of the cover-up crew. And I would encourage them to be part of the cleanup crew.
So this next week's going to be key. So Monday is the day that they said, look, we got to have all the documents by Monday, and by the end of the week, basically, they are going to, so sometime next week, if they don't get the documents, they are going to use whatever measures they have to within their congressional authority to actually get these documents, and that includes even moving for impeachment on Rod Rosenstein. So, it's really coming to a head with this situation. Now I want to go to a video of Devin Nunes talking about a interesting turn of events where we now know that a Russian national actually tried to get Roger Stone, who at the time was on the Trump campaign, to purchase for $2 million information that would be damaging to Hillary Clinton. So let's roll that video.
So what you're saying is Trey Gowdy told the DOJ on Friday night if there was any activity, any communication, any documents related to the Trump-Russia probe launching, if there was any information before it actually launched, you want to know that today, by today.
By today.
And have you heard from them? Is there any other?
And I reiterated it.
So is there any? Have you heard from them that there's more information?
They have my phone number. They have my phone number. They know how to call myself or Mr. Gowdy. If I were them, I would pick up the phone and call us and let us know what this is all about. This story that broke in the Washington Post this morning, just hours ago.
Right.
They probably ought to tell us whether or not they were involved in that, or else they have a major problem
The
on their hands.
Washington Post is reporting that Trump associate Roger Stone reveals new contact with Russian national during the 2016 campaign. And yes, you're right. It was in May of 2016 when Roger Stone says that he was that he was met with a Russian. He's calling him an informant. Wanting money for information about Hillary Clinton that he says that he wants Donald Trump to pay for.
So this is really interesting because this shows that Roger Stone was approached by an individual, a Russian national, who was using a name that sounded made him sound like he was Western. Like he was not indeed from Russia, and what this individual did is he met with Roger Stone, and he met with him in May of 2016. So that's really key because this is before the supposed beginning of the Trump-Russia FBI investigation. The investigation supposedly began in July 2016 when a campaign staffer, George Papadopoulos, bragged in a London bar to a Australian diplomat, Alexander Downer, that he supposedly had access to damaging information on Hillary Clinton. That was supposedly in July, the beginning of this investigation. Well, this meeting with Roger Stone was in May. We already know now, because the DOJ and FBI finally had to release this information, that the campaign was infiltrated with spies, that the FBI attempted to insert people within the campaign to get information. Now, it's very possible that the FBI was attempting to insert people into the campaign before July, and this may very well be an example of one of those individuals. Now, again, the FBI swears up and down that the whole thing started in July, but we know previous to that, Papadopoulos was talking with a Russian, a guy named Joseph Mifsud, and this individual is quite suspicious, quite shady, and many people, myself included, are wondering if that individual was inserted into the periphery of the Trump campaign by the FBI, or if not the FBI, potentially by Fusion GPS. Now remember, the FBI was working hand in glove with Fusion GPS, the opposition research operation that was funded by the DNC and Hillary Clinton to get opposition research on Donald Trump. That is what produced the infamous dossier that said, among other things, that Donald Trump, liked Russian hookers to pee on, pillows that Barack Obama slept on, or some kind of nonsense. Salacious, unverified. It was used to get the FISA application. It was key to getting the FISA application to spy on Carter Page and spy on other members in the Trump team by extension. So we know that there were individuals inserted into the Trump campaign by the FBI. Now, it's seeming more and more like even prior to July, there may have been individuals inserted into the FBI. Now, if it was Fusion GPS that was perhaps trying to set up these encounters as a form of entrapment, did the FBI know about this? So there are many questions that arise from this, and more obviously there's much more investigation that needs to happen, and hopefully someday we can get to the bottom of all of this. Now, I want to go through some key questions that I'm left with after highlighting some of the takeaways from the IG report. So, key questions are: were FBI spies or Fusion GPS spies introduced into the Trump campaign before July? Obviously, that's a key question. We need to, this is something that we need to find out, and this is what the congressional oversight is looking for in terms of, at least to some extent, in terms of documents that they're asking for by the DOJ, documents that the DOJ is stonewalling and saying basically doesn't exist. But time and time again, they say this stuff doesn't exist, and it turns out, like the "we'll stop him" text from Peter Strzok, that it does indeed exist. What did Obama know, and when did Obama know it? So we know now that Obama lied, almost certain. I mean, he really had to have lied about finding out about Hillary Clinton's private email. We know that she did communicate with him, and that he was using a pseudonym, which is very interesting. And when it comes to the Russia investigation, when did Obama know the investigation was going on? Almost certainly he had to. So we need to know what Obama knew, and when did he know it. He needs to be brought before a committee, and he needs to testify under oath. I mean, that is something that really needs to happen in the near future. Another question is, are Bruce Ohr and Bill Priestap cooperating? So, Bruce Orr was one of the key individuals in the Department of Justice, and Bill Priestap is one of the key individuals at the FBI. Basically, he is the person in between Peter Strzok and Andrew McCabe, the FBI Deputy Director. These two individuals were not really featured predominantly in the IG report, and it's probably because they are, in fact, cooperating right now with congressional oversight and the IG and his team. So that very well might be the reason, because these are two people who are key to this whole operation, and it's not a coincidence that they were left out in such large extent. Now, obviously, who is attorney number 2? The famous attorney number 2 who was part of the Mueller probe that was let go, that said "Viva la Resistance," part of the resistance against Trump. We obviously, unless this guy's like undercover or something, we should be able to find out who this individual is. And finally, why did Rudolph Contreras, the judge who accepted Mike Flynn's guilty plea, recuse himself after accepting Mike Flynn's guilty plea, and days after it became clear through media reports that Peter Strzok was let go of the Russia investigation, the special counsel, because of his clear anti-Trump bias? Did the IG find those texts about Strzok talking about Contreras having to recuse himself and them having private meetings? Was that brought to the judge's attention, and is that why he had to recuse himself? Or even more explosive, was the judge who was was a FISA judge? Was he one of the judges that signed off on either the initial FISA application or one of the renewals? And finally, did he recuse himself on his own, or was he forced to recuse himself, as Joe diGenova has suggested? Now, again, this is a 500-page report. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've read all of it. I haven't. I've read key portions of it. I've been able to look at other people's reporting on it who have been able to read all of it, who've had teams who've been able to read all of it. I do want to read all of the report for myself. And again, these are just some of the key takeaways that I've been able to gather in this short period of time since this IG report has come out. And these are just, some of the questions. These are just some of the takeaways. Again, it's a 500-page report. But my final message, I suppose, would be, please do not let the mainstream media narrative that A, this report found no political bias, and that B, the FBI helped Hillary Clinton. Please don't allow those two narratives to overwhelm you. I know it is going to be the key drum beats from the mainstream media, but the fact is those two things are truly missing the point of the IG report. It, in fact, did find that there was significant political bias. It just didn't find any proof 100% beyond a reasonable doubt that any specific decisions were made clearly because of political bias. And the fact that the FBI, James Comey in particular, hurt Hillary Clinton by opening up the investigation. First of all, Hillary Clinton shouldn't have been corrupt in the first place using that private server, and she would have never had to deal with this in the first place. Second of all, yeah, it may have damaged Hillary Clinton, but it was less damaging than a leak out of the federal district, the New York field office would have been. And Comey knew that, and that's why he did it. He was playing damage control for Hillary. Okay, with that, I really appreciate you watching this video. I'm going to continue to break down, new revelations that come out of the IG report and the, subpoena documents that are going to be possibly given up on Monday. That's probably not going to happen, so it's going to be a war between the congressional oversight and the DOJ. To turn in these documents, and it's truly going to be explosive. So I'll be making videos on that, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was insightful. I hope you were able to really gain some valuable information from some of these key takeaways. With that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and may the force be with you.